If you had to pick or name one trait that you would say is essential in making marriage work, what would that be? Today's guest, Jessie Joy, is the co founder of Married Game, a transformative business she runs with her husband, Keith, to help couples reignite their relationships. After stepping away from her marriage to reclaim her self worth, Jessie returned to build a unique program that guarantees results for couples looking to reconnect. She speaks passionately about high standards, balancing motherhood with entrepreneurship, and the dynamics of working alongside her husband. Jessie, welcome to the Slayer Day podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited. You and I connected like a few years ago, I think through our husbands.
Yes.
And I love listening to your story and what you and Keith are up to now, because what I love is that you guys are really building and supporting couples and the marriage. And you and your husband work together. And first of all, it's not easy to work with your spouse, as you know firsthand.
Right.
I don't work with mine, but being a mom and being a wife and a business owner, there are so many different dynamics and challenges and obstacles that we face. So I wanted to bring you on and pick your brain and talk to you a little bit about how you guys navigate these.
Working together, I think it's important to find your roles and know what you're best at. So I'm more a stay-at-home mom, and I come in and pick and choose what we get to do together, things that I feel comfortable with. It's taken me a long time to even get here because I was behind the camera mostly, and he was in front of the camera. So it's me just tiptoeing in and out. We do the coaching together. We do some calls together and the podcast together, and that's a lot of fun. But he's better more in business. I'm better at home, but we do, obviously he has to be a dad too. So we do mix, and we just are so comfortable with knowing our roles. Doesn't mean we didn't run into conflicts along the way. And at home too, right? When you have to talk about parenting, we talk about business too. So there's a lot of conversations back and forth to know what we're best at and what we thrive at.
Yeah. And so for the audience who might have not heard of Married Game yet, I want to talk about this because when I heard this for the first time, I was like, this is so interesting. Like,
yeah.
It also sounds very fun.
Yes.
I think, it's very lighthearted. It's very fun, but you guys are doing some amazing work. So can you tell us a little bit about, it's Marriage Game or Married Game?
Married Game.
Married Game. Okay. So Married Game.
Yes.
What exactly is Married Game?
So how we came up with the name was like, people think they have the game to get the woman and they get married and then they're done. So the whole premise is where we start with fun. Like, why do we have to stop our fun when we get married? So we're teaching men to have game within their marriage, to have fun, to thrive together. So no one's, you're not bored and you have kids and life hits you hard. It's like to have more game in your marriage.
So fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun. Jared and I just went to Vegas. He had like a 1 day, couple hour like work event that he had. And he's like, let's make a weekend out of it just for us, because you know how it is, like being so busy with work and the home life and the kids and your business and all these, just points of life that we have, which are so important. Like Jared and I talk and we're like, sometimes the marriage is like the last thing on the totem pole. And you're like, well, we didn't have a date night this week and we didn't get to like have any time together. So like, when do we get to prioritize this? So we did that, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And what I loved is that like, we were out, we were seeing shows, and like you guys talk about this all the time. It's like having that fun again, and you get to reconnect on another level that like you sometimes forget about in the day to day.
It's so important to step out of the household because you're just like mom. And then you feel like you again, and you're refreshed and you're fun and flirty.
Yes.
And like Keith and I, we always say like, if no one can thrive without kids, like what kind of relationship are you in? Like I'm the most awesomest chick like outside the house. And he's like, want to do this? I'm just like, yes, because you don't have the kids. But when you're at home, you're like, well, they have to go to bed. Well, they have to take a bath. Like, So it's really important to step out of the house.
Yes. It's so good. So let me ask you, how often do you guys do, like in our case, like I said, Jared and I, it was just us, like 3 days. We went to Vegas, had a little like vacation together. How often do you guys do that?
Well, that depends, I think, on our schedule, but we try to do like a once a month.
Oh, nice.
Date. Like we go to, like we live in Dana Point. We go to Newport all the time, just get a hotel one night and,
Yeah.
and then wake up in the morning and then get breakfast and then we mosey on home. But it's
Yeah.
really important to do that. So we try to get it in about once a month. We do date nights about once a week, sometimes more, sometimes less, just depends on our schedule. But yeah, that is a really important thing for us to do, an overnight one.
Yeah. That's
Mhm.
really good. So Jared and I said we were going to do a vacation, like not a staycation, but an actual vacation once a quarter,
Uh-huh.
once a month, do like a staycation, we call them J&S days, like Jared and Sandy days,
Aw.
which is like what you were talking about, like get the hotel, maybe it's just a day, maybe it's a weekend,
Yeah.
and then once a week date nights. But I want to ask you this question because again, you guys are like us. We have so much packed into our schedules
Yeah.
that sometimes you don't get those weekly date nights.
Mhm.
And sometimes it might be 2 weeks in between a date night. So do you have any like rituals or things that you do? Like,
Yeah.
let's say the schedule's really busy and you're like, we're not connecting, we're not getting time together. Is there anything that you guys have that you do like in between those really like long stretches?
This is my calendar, and it's really important that we sit down every Monday and we go over what we're going to do,
Mhm.
what's coming up, and we plan our date night. It's really important to be intentional because
Yeah.
time will go by and it's 2 weeks. You're like, well, we haven't even had any time. And I'm
Right.
like, you start to get this feeling and you don't even realize what it is, but you're like, I kind of don't like you right now. And then you're like, oh, yeah, we haven't had any connection. It's just been
Right.
go, 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 go. And so that's why it's really important to be super intentional about your schedule.
Yeah. So one thing that Jared and I, and this might help the listeners, but this is one of the things that we said, like a ritual that we put in place was if we go any longer than like a week or there's travel, whatever that we can't control, right? Because
Yeah.
like for Jared, he's working for someone else. I have my
Yeah.
own business. So in his case, he doesn't have as much control of his schedule. What we put in place was whenever either one of us gets back from travel, we have to have a date night. Like that next day or
Yeah.
whatever it is, like whenever that next available like day or time period is. And that's kind of like this safeguard. So as busy as we get, we're like, okay, you leave, you come back, then we go out and have
Yeah.
that date night. So we can reconnect because exactly what you said, it's like you can go a week or 2 weeks and feel like even be living in the same house and feel super disconnected.
Absolutely.
Everyone is talking about soursop, the tropical superfruit with superpowers. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, listen in. If you suffer from inflammation, digestive issues, low energy, or low immune health, there's nothing else like soursop to help your body feel its best. But the soursop fruit is almost impossible to source in the US. So Soursop Nutrition is on a mission to bring you a selection of expertly formulated supplements that give you the benefits of soursop hassle-free. The Soursop Cell Plus Immunity Gummies are gluten-free, non-GMO, and low-carb, and they're a favorite in my house. We also love their shake boosts, which come in 4 flavors, including 2 delicious fall favorites, pumpkin and apple. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see I love adding the shakes into my smoothies, and we even add them to our bake treats for the kids, and they love baking with me. They're great for gut health, are full of fiber, and help balance blood sugars, making it a natural weight management aid. Who doesn't love that? The shakes are also 0 sugar, low carb, and gluten-free. Place your first order today and enjoy 20% off with code SANDY20 or use the link in the show notes.
And even
Yeah.
more so, I think, because like it's like just like I said, the schedule, bump, 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 bump.
Mm-hmm.
Even when they go to travel and they experience all these new things and you
Yeah.
don't even know what they just did, and then
Yeah.
they don't know what you did or the kids did. So that I love that you're doing something right after you travel. I think I'm going to put that in place in my marriage. I love that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
we did it because, and you probably experienced this as well. We would go these long periods and then feel super disconnected, and both of us are feel like you guys probably know what your love languages are. Mine
Mm.
is time, and Jared's is touch. So he's like, I don't feel like you want to like be around me or you want to touch me or anything, and I'm like, well, I feel like you don't want to connect with me,
Yeah.
and we're like, we both are like desiring the same things but in different ways.
Yeah.
And we went out on a date night, like, I don't know, maybe a month ago. And we're both like saying the same thing, but like in different ways. And we're like, we're just missing that connection right now. And then like literally after that date night, everything's good again.
Exactly. It just reminds me of like why Keith and I fight. And then it's like, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. Obviously you feel that way in the moment. And then when you get together, you're like, we're literally saying the same thing. That's
Yeah.
why it's so important to put on your schedule that time, because
Yeah.
that's what you both want, is
Yeah.
to connect in some sort of way, some sort of love language.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Absolutely. And it's funny because I think that no matter how long have you guys been together?
Almost 13 years.
13 years. Okay. So Jared and I will be married 9 years this January, but together 11. So,
Yeah.
so pretty close.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so funny because I think that no matter where you're at, you're constantly like learning new things about the marriage, like, and the marriage being its own unit, right? Because there's like you, and then there's him, and then there's the marriage. So
Hmm.
it's like, I mean, I know for me, I'm constantly learning new things about like, how can I help him? How can I support
Yeah.
him? Because even though we've been together for, over 10, 11 years, I'm still figuring it out. Like it's still like a
Well, 'cause
work in
we all
progress
learn and
every
grow
day.
and change too, right?
Right.
Keith changes into a whole new person like every year or so. But that's such
Yeah.
a good thing because he's
Yes.
learning and growing, and then I got to relearn him. But I specifically love what you said that you're you and he's him, and then there's the one together, because a lot of people forget they put all of themselves into them and they forget
Yeah.
who they are too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So, what would you say to the couples that like they're evolving and they're growing and then like, maybe one's growing a little bit more than the other.
Mhm.
Like how does that work? Like how do you help to like maybe I don't know if it's like motivate, I don't know if that's the
Mhm.
right word, but like what would you say to someone that's maybe in a relationship where they're the motivated one,
Yeah.
but then the person that they're with is like, I'm good, I'm just like where I'm at, I'm good. Because I think that again is like an ebb and a flow.
I love what you said, because it usually is one person and then one person. It's not usually, and it's so rare when you're like, yeah, let's grow together.
Yeah.
Which actually recently happened to Keith and I, which never really happened. And we were so pumped with each other, like doing this. But
Yeah.
usually it's like this. And so say he's growing and I'm like, I'm good, right here. I'm comfortable. Like, oh, good for you. Like there's things that you can't shame that person for growing or not growing in that time either, because there are things personal in their life or whatever is going on. And then on the other end, it's like, so like say he's growing and I'm not, like, I always encourage. I'm like, good for you. I'm so happy for you. And sometimes the wife gets a little angry, or their trauma is like, you're growing without me, are you going to leave me, and they get that way too. So it's really important to know that this is just seasonal,
Yeah.
and you'll feel that way too. So it's always good to encourage on both ends.
Yeah.
And the way Keith does it too with me, he's like, I read this, want me to tell you about it? I'm like, yeah.
Oh, I like that he asks you.
Yeah. Oh, and because he's not forcing me, right? And this is
Right.
taking a long time to get here too, because he used to be angry at me and thinking I don't want to grow or I don't like to
Yeah.
self help. I just do it differently than him and a different rate. And sometimes I feel more motivated than he does. So I'm
Right.
like, oh, this is what I'm excited about. This is what I learned today. And he's like, oh, that's really cool. And then we start to level out to be the same way. So he used to even go to like seminars without me, and I'd be back with Jovi when she was like real little. I'm like, well, tell me what you learned. Like, I want to be as excited with you. And so then he would tell me certain things. And I'm like, oh, that is really cool. And I start to feel motivated. So it is like teaching the other person what you learned, and they start to grow with you.
That's so good. So one of the things, this was literally just yesterday, so this is like something new for us. I'm an avid reader. Like I love reading, like actually holding the book, reading, but I also when I'm driving in the car, I love to listen to books as well. And I come across like I just amazing books. And then I'm like, man, I'm reading so much or listening to these books so much that I'll go through like 5 or 6 a month because like that's just one of my things that I love to do. And so I said to Jared, I said, why don't we like read or listen? It doesn't matter. So like let's pick one book. We can like alternate, you pick one, I'll pick one, and we can listen to or read a book, on our own time. And then we can, on our date nights, like we can talk about it or we can like share what we learned. And it can be anything. It could be like 1 month he picks a business book and 1 month I pick a parenting book or whatever. It doesn't matter. But I texted him yesterday because I'm reading this amazing book right now. And I'm like, wait, and instead of me like, sending him screenshots and like telling him all the things I'm learning. I'm like, oh, this would be really cool if we did this together.
Yes. How connecting is that? Usually Keith does a lot of the reading,
Yeah.
and I'll listen to some certain things. But he'll tell me what he's learned. He's like, let me read this quote to you. It's so
Yeah.
exciting. And I'm like, dang, that's really cool. So like
Yeah.
he mostly does that for me, and it motivates me and it excites me.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's really good. That's really good. Well, I want to take it back for a moment because you guys are in an incredible place right now and you're teaching other couples how to learn these tips and strategies. But there was a time in your marriage where it wasn't all butterflies and rainbows and there was a rough patch. And it was a time in your life where you decided to leave your husband. And I want to ask you, number one, to tell us a little bit about that. And what was that turning point for you? Like, what, in your opinion, like what brought you to that point?
So I think the nail in the head situation was he was like neglecting me and just like talking about himself and not asking how I was. And Jovi was 2 at the time, so this was like 8 years ago. And I was like, this is horrible. I felt more lonely in the house with him than when he was like traveling gone. I felt like I could just do my own thing. But when he's home, I was like, oh God, I hate being around him. And then it was Mother's Day, which my sole job at the time was to be an awesome mother. He forgot Mother's Day completely. And that morning I was like, okay, that's it. So I think a week later I was packing up the U-Haul and driving off. And that was a time for me where I really had to stick up for myself. Like life was good. I mean, we had money, we had a house and all the things, but I was just like so neglected in our relationship. So it was really hard to leave because I was like, I had to move in with my mom and like figure things out. But I was like, I'm not going to spend another day. Like, this is my self worth. This is my life. Well, for him on the other end, when I broke up with him, he said that was like a light switch for him. He's like, oh shit, like this, I've really been neglecting her. I haven't been a good dad. I haven't been a good husband. And I think, gosh, 6 months later, I saw him turn into the guy I met, the guy I knew he could be, and the man I wanted him to be for so long. And I was like, maybe, maybe I should go back. Maybe can I get him back? Like this, I left him, and then I was like, well, I want our family together. So we ended up getting back together, and that was the big turning point where I was like, this is like getting your ex back, but not just like, okay, we went back and now we're going to be awesome. Like that's actually when the real work started for us, because it's like we have to be really intentional. We started even listening to these things online. It's like, what do you love about your spouse the most? Like we started doing these activities together, and like we hadn't like really like fully hadn't really like come back when I came back. Mentally it was really difficult to come back and be all in. So we started doing these exercises, and it's like, what do you love about your husband? And I was like, he's trying, and that's where we started to like rebuild our
Yeah.
relationship. And then took a few years, but then we really got it back. And then now after 8 years, we're like really, really thriving. I'm so glad I left him. I'm so glad I came
Mhm.
back. And then now Jovi like loves our relationship. She's like, you guys will never break up. You're helping everybody. So
Aw.
it's a really, really great situation. So through our pain and all that we had been through and put our family through, we help coach men, which we believe are the leader, supposed to be the leader of the family to hold everyone together. We teach men, hit it at the source, to help motivate their wife. Their wife's a mirror to them, and then their family, and everybody thrives. So I really enjoy seeing how their lives change because of the pain that we went through.
Yeah. So how do you, because you're working with the men, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, I would assume, I would think it would be hard in the beginning to kind of get through to someone who may not see the light. Like in your situation, it was like you took a drastic measure to get him to wake up,
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we get, or how do you guys get the men to actually maybe like see those signs, or realize,
Yeah.
in their marriages, relationships, whatever, like how do you kind of like break through them and like wake them up?
It's sometimes hard, but usually the men that reach out, most of them, not all, but most of them are at a point where they're like, my wife is about to serve me
Oh, so they
papers.
know.
So that's when they reach out, right? But some
Hmm.
that reach out, they're like, oh, I have a good marriage. I want a better marriage. And those are pretty hard too, because they're not at the desperate point, right? And there was even this one situation where this dude, like the wife left twice, and then the third time. And then it was really hard for him to see his ways because he's like, but I did this twice to get her back. I'm going to do it again. We're like, no, that's why she left again. You're obviously not doing anything right. And so those situations are really hard, but it's important for them to stay on the coaching calls, for them to come out to our live event so we can show them their error of their ways and to switch that. There's only way to do it is for us to point it out. And so like even Keith is like, you need to be really honest with these guys. And I'm like, okay, I'll tell them what I see. And I think I'm really good at doing that in a way that it'll help their life and not shaming them in life, because him and I have been in that same spot. Like we have been that person. So we need to show them so they can bring it back to their marriage and change.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that tough love, I mean, for you, it must be, I don't know, is it hard or you're like, I enjoy this now?
I enjoy it now. I definitely enjoy it now because, like I said,
Yeah.
I feel like I can do it in a way.
And it's helping.
It is helping. That's why I feel. And I'm like, look, this is what I see. We're just trying to help you. We love you. We want you to succeed. So we say it in a way that's not shameful. And we're all human, right? Like we're all going to mess up. Like I have mistakes. I'm human. I need grace. So we do the same for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's some of the advice that you give them? Maybe like one or two things that you can share with our listeners, or maybe let's say this because there's a lot of women that listen to the show. What are things that like as the woman like that the woman can do to like support? Because maybe and I'm trying to think of like it from the view of okay, like maybe does she want to support him in this or maybe not? So like maybe what's
Yeah.
something that she can do? Because I would think that look, if you have a family and you want this to work out, you want to support your spouse, you want them to succeed with this.
Yes.
So like what's something that we can share with the ladies that might help them through that journey?
I think it's really important for the ladies to stop like nagging, but to also to start being really honest about what they want and what they expect in their marriage, relationship, whatever they have going on. So to start having those hard conversations, and not in a way that you're like, you need to do this, or it's a way of like, we need this for our life. We want to be better. We want to grow together for our family. I want this to work. I'm all in. I'm here to support you. To say those kind of words for a relationship is really empowering to hear. But she's like, but I expect this. That's
Yeah. So
really
holding the
important.
standard, but
Yes,
also giving them the space to like lead.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And to motivate instead of shame, right?
Yeah.
Because women are like, you don't do this, you don't do that. And I
Yeah.
used to do this all the time. And instead of saying, I know you can do this, you're capable of more. I'm here for you. Let's do
That's so
this
good.
together. Those kind of words.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah, that's
encouraging
super
words.
motivating. It's almost like being a coach, right? It's like,
Yes.
you're like coaching and it's I read a lot of parenting books. Like I
Yeah.
read just as many
I love
business books as
parenting stuff.
yes, and
Real
it's so funny
exciting.
because I'll take all the notes and I'll like pass it on to Jared, and he's like, "Wait, like just do those same techniques with me." So I'm like,
It's
there's a
true.
lot
It
of
is very true.
there's a
Yeah,
lot of
because you'll never
crossover
see
here,
your
you know?
child, right? You would want to
Yeah.
encourage. And the same with
Yes.
your husband. So, and I know my mom joked around. She's like, talk to your husband the way you talk to your daughter. I was like, yeah,
I mean,
probably right.
sometimes, and a lot of the parenting stuff that I read is like the conscious parenting and like, and you're giving them and like them, I mean, like whether it's the spouse, the husband or the kids, it's like you want to give them the benefit of the doubt that like they have the best intentions. Cause I
Yeah.
think we get ourselves in trouble when we go in thinking like that the kids or this partner or whatever, like doesn't have the best
Yeah.
intentions. And then you're just setting the whole thing off on the wrong foot.
I love that. I love that. We always say like your partner, your spouse, your husband, wife, or whatever, they're not against you. So when you're fighting, you want to like be like, you hate me, you're not here for me, but they're always on your side. They want the same things you want, I'm pretty sure. So just like your child, they're not doing things against you. So always know that they're on your side. So work to find a goal, to see what your problem is, and to fix it, not to be like, you're against me and now I'm against you and now we're not teammates. So put down your swords. You are teammates and you can work it out.
And life is hard enough.
Yeah.
I mean, man, between like, obviously we're in a very heavy like political season right
Yeah.
now. So the world feels so heavy right now. And then you put work and kids and home. It's like, you want that to be easy. Like you want that to be your safe space.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's, if that's the thing that like, and I want my husband to feel that, like when he comes home, I want him to feel like this is his safe,
Peaceful.
space. And like, I want that for both of us.
Yes.
So it's just like, I think giving families today in this crazy chaotic world, it's like your partner is your teammate. They're not your enemy.
Right. I love that. That's exactly true. And
Yeah.
I like to have peace in the home.
Yeah.
Peace is really important. That's a big word for us because
Yeah.
like you said, the outside world or working, it's stressful, or you're dealing with and coaching other people and you hear those problems and you want to come home and be like, this is my safe spot. And I want my daughter to feel the same way.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's really
Exactly.
important to thrive, I think.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So do you know what is your love language and what's his love language?
I love acts of service and I like time. And obviously his is touch.
Yeah.
And he loves
I think every guy's touch.
I know. I think every single man is like, that's their first one.
Yeah.
And then he loves, I lost my train of thought now. Oh, words of affirmation too. Those are pretty good.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. I know sometimes I'm like, I'm definitely all of them, but like, here's like my, top. So do you have anything that you like are your go-tos, like maybe like your secret, like box of secrets where you're like, okay, I know that like, these are the things that he loves. And then like, you kind of give him some hints about the things that you love that he like are his go-tos.
Yeah. Do you want me to say his go-to?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my secrets, like obviously touch. So that's really important for me to actively say, do you want sex? Do you want some touch? Do you want a massage? Like that's really important. And to say how proud I am of him for all that he does for us and the family and all the hard work he does. Those are my really top tier. And then after that, he's pretty easy on the other things. But I love to like feed him and like make something really yummy. And I'm like, do you like that bite? Is it good? And he's like,
yeah.
That's a thing
for all day making this for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like a time to go out on a day and to feel like him and I again are connecting. But acts of service, like when he actively, without me asking, will, take Jovi on a date, or he's like, do you want to take a nap? While I take Jovi, like those things where he actively does on his own. I'm like,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like the Instagram video where it's like, what do they call? Oh, chore play, when he's like taking out the trash, taking the kids, and you're like, ooh.
I know when he takes Jovi on a date, I'm like, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think you want to do more for him when he does that. So like we're trying to outdo each other on the love languages now.
Oh, I love that. So one thing that Jared and I, we probably started talking about this, I don't know, 5 years ago. And one of the things that we would say, like kind of regularly on date nights, we'd say, or he would bring it up and he'd say, like, how can I be of service to you? Like, how can I serve you? And I know that there's gonna be women that are on like here being like, oh my God, what do you mean serve you? But when you really think about it, if both people are doing that, if I'm serving my husband and coming from a place of like, how can I take care of you? How can I show up for you today? Like he's gonna want to do that back.
You get more,
and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Honey attracts, you get more.
Yes. So like, that's something that I have to say we're not always like on top of that, but it's kind of like our thing that we're like, all right, that's like when we think about that, when we're aware of it, like things go so well.
I know. Exactly. And then you're like hanging out and it's so peaceful and it's fun. It's flirty from there. Yeah. It makes everything better when you're trying to be nice instead of like, I'm not doing that for him.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let me ask you this. All right. So like if we're in that headspace, right? But it's so easy to fall into like there's so much housework to be done. And sometimes you feel like Cinderella because you're like, I'm like
I really do.
cleaning the house and schlepping the kids and picking them
Yeah.
up from practices and
Yeah.
like doing all these things. Like, do you have any, okay, there's gonna be Jesse's secrets. Like, how do we like turn that off when we feel like we're the ones that are like doing everything? And then, cause I know that again, women are going to be like, I'm doing everything. And now I have to like serve my husband. Like, how do we like go from that place of feeling I'm doing it all and like I'm not getting any support? Like, what are some secrets or little tips that you can share with us to support us as women to like, you know, get and shift out of that?
It sounds pretty obvious, but like what you just said at the end when you said like with no tone and you just were like sharing your heart. Honestly, if you just start to share your heart like that, it'll really work over
Mhm.
well instead of saying, you never pick up the kids.
Yeah,
You say,
the
I'm really
extremes.
feeling like you're not helping, or I'm feeling a lack of you help. Something a little nicer with
Right,
no tone. You're literally just sharing your heart instead of pointing the finger. You're just like, I
right.
would love a little more from you. That would make me feel really good.
Yeah,
It's taken me a long time to not do this,
yeah,
and I still fall into it.
yeah.
If
Me
you haven't spent
too. Me
any time
too.
with Jovi, that
Yeah,
you'll never get out of that. Also, Keith tells me, he's like, if you say like I'm feeling really lonely, he'll want to come to my rescue.
yeah. Because
And
that's what
instead of
men do. They
saying,
want to
you
be like the
never hang
hero.
out with me, you never think of me, you never spend time with me, you say,
Right.
I'm feeling really lonely.
Yeah,
And he's like,
that's
oh,
good.
I want to make you feel happy. I want to make you feel like the most loved girl in the world. So then
Yes.
he'll start planning dates, he'll start doing things for me. And it's, yeah, but it's taken me a long time to be like, you never.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because I think that we, in our minds, like I do this as well. It's like you almost, like for me, I'll fall into like that victim mentality for a
Yes.
minute. You never, or like it's extreme.
Why
And
am
then
I
I'm like, wait,
always
wait.
doing everything around here?
Yeah.
That's
And
an
then,
easy one to say.
right. But
Yeah.
then I'm like, wait a second. That's not the case. He does so much.
Right.
And I think this also helps too, is like, we both have different roles, but they're equally important. Like what he does at work is just as important as like what I'm doing at home. And I don't, neither one of us discredits like what the other person does or is
Mhm.
doing.
Yeah, that's why I started off saying how important it was to know our roles. That we've
Right.
had many conversations on like what he's good at, what I'm good at, what I could help with, what he could help with. And so that's why when we're like, I know he does a good job here. I know he's doing amazing and he knows I'm a great mother and he knows I'm doing amazing. And then when we work together, like we encourage each other on what we're doing too. That is so important to know what you're good at, but never like shame the other person. You never, but they need help getting out of their heads too. So I would love if you come with me. Can you help me? It would make me feel so wonderful or I feel lonely. Those are my key words to use.
And it's getting vulnerable too. Like
Yeah.
I think it's scary to get vulnerable because you're like, oh, well, I don't want to tell him I want to,
Yeah.
seem needy or like,
Yeah. Yeah,
so
on both
I don't
ends
know.
we feel that way too, but I feel like it's really important to like, well, you do feel needy and you do need more of his attention. And if I can't
Yeah.
be vulnerable with this person, like who can I be vulnerable with? So it's
Right.
really important to remember those things. It goes over way better
Yes.
when you're vulnerable, when you just share from your heart than when you point the
Right.
finger.
Right, right. And I think it also helps to keep things the conversation positive instead of like what you're saying where you're pointing a finger, you're
Yeah.
shaming or blaming, like that's never going to go down well.
And I think this is a little tip is to never think that your partner did this intentionally to hurt you.
Mhm.
Like they
Right.
just forgot and they need reminding.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So what is like maybe one habit or one ritual that you and Keith practice to keep your relationship strong when it comes to navigating these tougher times? Like, is there something, because like you're giving us these really good tips about like keeping it positive, and look, we all fall down. We all are at some point, it's easy to say these things, but it's in the moment. It's like parenting. It's like I can read all the books, but unless I'm putting it into practice, like you gotta learn it and then you gotta implement it. So what are some things that you guys do maybe when you are in conflict to keep things positive
Yeah.
and not go down that rabbit hole?
The guardrails we put up to try not to fall off too far, right? So we do our Monday planning meetings, and during this time we can say anything that we feel like a little frustrated with, or like, I would like it if you help me out with Jovi a little more or something. Or
Yeah.
like, I
Like a
really would
little
like it.
check-in.
Yeah, a little check-in. Yeah.
Nice.
So we do that. And then a couple of times a month, we have a therapy call. We say with our wizard, because he's been there from the beginning. He's been amazing. So that's something we can really be vulnerable with, and to navigate a situation that we're not seeing clearly on.
Yeah.
So
Like
we
a
have
third
those in
party to
place.
just, yeah.
And then we have our date nights, and the date nights
Mhm.
are, so those ones are for like to clear up anything. And then our date
Yeah.
nights are for us to feel like a human again, and for us to like let go, have fun. And it's really important to be your fun, free self as much as
Yeah.
possible in these date times, because you're like, oh yeah, this is why I like this person.
And dress up and be
Yeah.
sexy and have
Yeah.
fun. Cause I think that that's something that even as moms and working in the home, you're like, I'm not like walking around the house in heels and,
No, I got my
like a
sweats
tight little
on.
dress.
Yeah,
But like, I
absolutely.
want to go out and do my hair and my makeup and get dressed
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's really important to have the self-worth and confidence in yourself. And those little date nights, you're like, oh yeah, my hair is cute.
Yeah.
Or
Not like in a
not.
mom bun all day
Yeah,
long.
exactly. Sweaty workout clothes all day.
Right.
All day
Exactly.
long. Yeah.
So what advice you have for the moms that are like feeling stretched thin between the family and the business? We talked about the date nights, but are there any other tips that you can share with her that, she's in the thick of it? And I know just from personal experience, and you probably, I would love your feedback also. I just know that like honoring the seasons for me was like a really, really big one, because so I have two boys, and the first, I would say 6 months to a year postpartum were really, really hard. Like it wasn't just like the fact that had to like do laundry or the house or whatever. It was like my hormones were all out of whack, and like I wasn't sleeping and I was breastfeeding. So the seasons, like acknowledging the seasons was like a really, really big one for me, because like I knew when I was in the thick of it, like postpartum, it wasn't going to be forever. It was just kind of like that season. So what would you say to those mothers who are feeling stretched thin between family and business right now?
Um, I love what you said, honoring the seasons, because like Jovi's 10 now. So I'm like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like that was really difficult. So it's like having grace on your spouse is really important during those seasons, to have someone to come talk to
Yeah.
your hardship. That's really important, to be there for your spouse. But also, I think number one is to do things for yourself. To remember yourself is really important. So like, I like to
That's
work
good.
out.
Mm-hmm.
I like my date nights. So those are things that keep me connected to myself. I put on
Yes.
some music and I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm fun. I got this. So it's really important to take time for yourself, even I think during the hard seasons, as much as you can. If they're
So
feeling
good.
stretched thin, maybe, hire someone out to do some
Mm-hmm.
cleaning, laundry, because your family does come first more than those tedious jobs. So like if they can afford someone to help a little bit, that's
Yep.
really important too. Like if I'm going to spend a whole day cleaning my house, I'd rather spend it hanging out with my daughter.
Right.
That's really
100%.
important. Hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Two more questions for you. One is, what is a non-negotiable for couples that want a connected marriage, that wants, to feel seen and heard? Like, what is a non-negotiable that maybe you guys have in place?
Well, maybe date night is a non-negotiable, but
Okay.
also having the hard conversations, a time
Hmm.
set for that where everyone has open ears to hear.
Yeah.
Those are really important. That's the only way you can get things off your chest to move
Yeah.
on from those situations. So maybe a
That's so
therapy
good.
session,
That's,
non-negotiable.
yeah. Okay. Perfect. And then my final question for you is, if you had to pick or name one trait that you would say is essential in making marriage work, what would that be?
Fun.
You
I want
didn't
fun.
even have to think about it.
No, girls just want to have fun. That's why it's called Married Game.
Yes.
I want to have fun in my life. I don't want to not have fun for the rest of my life. I'm too
Yeah.
young and fun for that.
Yes. I love it. She was like, fun. I don't even
Fun.
need to think about it.
I want to have fun. I do.
I love it. Well, Jesse, thank you so much for being on the Slay Your Day podcast. Where can everybody find and connect with you?
Married Game. Or Jessie Joy 1111 on Instagram, but married game.
Amazing. We will link all of Jessie's socials in the description below so you guys can reach out to her. You can check out Married Game and maybe you might send it to your husband, send it his way. Jessie, thank you so much for being on the
Thank
Slay Your Day
you.
podcast. And to those of you, have an amazing day. And as always, go out and slay your day.